Greetings ladies and gentlemen, my name is Magnus and I'm making this video really quickly to give you guys some updates regarding the upcoming Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. We have recently been given a news article from the magazine Weekly Famitsu, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, that has given us some juicy information regarding the new Fire Emblem game that is set to release on May the 19th. So if you want to read this article, I'll be throwing a link in the video description, you can go check it out for yourself, but I will be going over the news that we have gotten in an orderly fashion. So we'll start with the difficulty settings that will be available to the game. For all of you who loves having like an easy mode, a normal mode, a lunatic mode, a hard mode, a lunatic plus, and yada yada, I'm afraid you guys will be very disappointed to hear that Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia will only have two difficulties, and that is normal and hard. So sorry, no lunatic. However, there will be a classic and a casual option. If you don't know what classic and casual is, it's essentially whether or not you want to play with permadeath or not. The previous installments of Fire Emblem have all allowed you to turn off permadeath, something that veterans of the series may be slightly disappointed with. But hey, it's kind of the way Fire Emblem is going right now, so that means that in essence, you kind of have four difficulties. You got normal classic, normal casual, hard classic, and hard casual. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like having four difficulties in a way, but in essence, you really only got two. I don't know if I like this particularly much. I think that you should have multiple difficulties in a Fire Emblem game. I honestly think normal, hard, and lunatic is too few. I would be happy with like 5 different difficulties, because I mean, there's just so many different skill levels of players out there. But hey, I mean, at least we're getting a hard mode, but like that's a bare minimum. Considering it is a remake of Gaiden, it will be very similar to Gaiden. I have no idea how hard this game will be. If it's anything like Gaiden, it will probably be pretty hard on hard mode. But I mean, at this point, we can only really speculate. But that's what we've been given: normal and hard mode, classic and casual. And then we've been given a brand new mechanic called Milas Gear. Now I'm going to be reading the official description of it. It says, if you use it during battle, you can rewind the movements of your units one at a time. There's a limit to the amount of times you can use it though, so don't abuse it. You will be given Milas Gear when you encounter Silk the Cleric. That's what she's named in the fan translation. In the official game, she's now called Silque with a Q. And yeah, when you meet her in Alm's Route, she hands him the Milas Gear, and you can apparently use it every single battle. But there is a limit to it. Maybe this limit will be reduced on hard mode, I don't know. It says there's a limit to the amount of times you can use it. I assume that is like every map. It's not like a set amount of uses that you have to spread throughout the game. I don't think it will be, but it's difficult to know at this point. But it is a time rewind mechanic where you can like, oh shit, I don't want to move this unit here, I want to yoink it back. It seems like a nice little mechanic. It's sort of like the Dragon Veins of Echoes, in a way. Sort of like a super special power that only the player can use. I think it's alright. I mean, it's difficult to say anything about it until we actually see it in action. I'm not really sure if I like a rewind feature, and I think that the way they're going to write it into the story is going to be very silly. However, there is one thing that really frightens me about this, and this very much sounds like a time reversal technique, and this terrifies me, because if they're going to introduce time reversing into Echoes, they might also introduce time travel, and that also opens the floodgates for children characters, which a lot of us are hoping will not take part in Echoes, because they were done really, really stupidly in Fates with the whole alternate dimension thing. It wouldn't surprise me if they were like, oh, we can use the Milas Gear to like make our kids grow up fast. So look at that, I just dragged him through time and now he's an adult. Now he can join our... Like, if they do that, I swear to God, I'm going to lose my shit. So as long as they keep it as a time reversal technique on maps only, I think it could potentially be a pretty cool feature, but again, we're gonna have to see how it pans out before we can judge it. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about terrain effects, as well as a potential exclusion of the weapon triangle. This is something that have been heavily debated over the past couple of months, whether or not Echoes will have a weapon triangle. Because of course, if you have played Gaiden, you would know that the weapon triangle is not present in Gaiden. It wasn't introduced until Fire Emblem 4, Genealogy of the Holy War. So, what it says here, and it's worded very, very strangely, it says, there is no weapon affinity in this game. This is very strange, because what exactly does an affinity means? A lot of people are debating now on Reddit whether or not, like, that actually means the weapon triangle, or if they're talking about something else altogether. But if you read the rest of the quote, it says, but terrain effects are important. In forests, for example, the enemy's hit rate drops 40%. So it would indeed make sense if they're talking about the weapon triangle. They're essentially saying that there is no weapon triangle in this game, so to make up for that, we have really high avoid on terrain. Now, 40% of avoid from a forest tile, that's insane. That's much more than we're used to. In the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games, and in the previous old-school Fire Emblem games, usually forests have given you 20% avoid. And in some of the newer games, like Awakening, I do believe forests gives you either 10 or 15%, I don't actually remember. But 40% is huge, and Gast actually talked about this in one of his videos. He said that terrain effects in Gaiden are ridiculous. Like, you get 50% avoid from standing on a gravestone, which makes the game really slow and tedious, and there's a lot of misses if there's an enemy occupying a gravestone. And he really didn't like it, actually. It's one of his biggest complaints with Gaiden, is the stupid terrain effects. So it would appear that we will not have a weapon triangle in Gaiden. And the reason behind this is, if you don't know, it seems like Fire Emblem Echoes will be very similar to Gaiden, down to the core game mechanics. And in Gaiden, axes are primarily a enemy-only weapon. There aren't really any axe-wielding enemies until the late game. So if the weapon triangle was present, you would either have to add a lot of axes into the mix, or it wouldn't really be fair, because there would only be lances and swords, which means that swords would be really fucked over, since they wouldn't really have any axes to be effective against. So yeah, it seems like the weapon triangle not going to be part of Echoes. I don't like that. I personally think they should have added access into the game on both player and enemy characters, because I think that the weapon triangle is such a core part of the Fire Emblem gameplay. And I know that Gaiden didn't have it, but I don't think that's an excuse not to include it. I mean, it is a remake after all. You can include some features into a remake that was not part of the original game, such as Milas Gear, for example. So, not a big fan of this. I think it can probably make the gameplay experience a little bit less strategic, a little bit more turtle incentivized, like you just want to bunker up on a forest tile and not move and just have the enemy come to you instead of actually charging the enemy and utilizing the weapon triangle to your advantage. We'll see how it pans out, but I'm not super happy about these news at all. So next up, we're going to be talking a little bit about magic. So it is confirmed magic is going to be working exactly like it did in Gaiden. Here's what it says. Magic disregards terrain effects, but it's not good to use excessively since you lose hit points when you attack with magic. So if you don't know how magic used to work in Gaiden, you didn't have tomes back in Gaiden. In fact, you didn't have staves or weapons with durability at all. Units capable of using magic just knew spells, and they would learn new spells when they leveled up. And the more powerful magic is, the more hit points it costs to cast. And I do believe you could kill yourself if you casted magic at low health. I don't exactly know, I haven't been playing enough Gaiden to confirm this, but I think this was the case. Even healing effects would drain hit points from the healer in order to heal other units. Not much, like 1 or 2 or 3 hit points every time you cast a spell, but it does add up, especially if you double attack. So, and of course, healers would use the spell Nosferatu to drain health, to heal themselves up after using a lot of hit points to cast spells. And of course it will be ignoring terrain effects. This is also how it used to work in Gaiden, so magic will be very good against units fortified on forts. I mean, considering forests will give you 40% avoid now, I can only imagine what forts and other like heavy terrain will give you. Probably something stupid like 50 or 60%. So magic will be very essential against the enemies hiding behind terrain. And yeah, it will be working exactly like it did in Gaiden. Since it will cost hit points, I can only imagine that we will be learning spells just like in Gaiden. Again, this game just seems to borrow a lot of elements from Gaiden to the point where it's almost identical. So I did like the way magic worked in Gaiden, so this is going to be very interesting to see. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to pan out in a remake. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about 2 new characters that were not part of Fire Emblem Gaiden, but will be joining us in Fire Emblem Echoes. The first is Burkitt, I don't know how to pronounce that, but his description reads, the Regal Emperor's nephew and a noble who stresses the importance of his social status. He provokes the Sykes, I don't know how that's pronounced either, betrayal and leads the Sophia Kingdom coup d'etat. So this guy apparently will be part of Celica's route by the looks of things. No idea what kind of class he is. I mean, he's a noble. He could be anything from a cavalier to a mage to a paladin. I don't know. Seems to be like the Virion archetype, the noble who likes being a noble. I mean, like I don't know. I have no idea how this guy will be. We don't have any official artwork or anything, so we can only speculate at this point. And then finally, we have a female character named Effie, and her description reads, Alm's childhood friend. She joins the Liberation Army with the intent of staying close to Alm. Her starting class is a villager. So we get a female villager, a little bit more TNA in Alm's starting group. I think everyone appreciates that. And she seems to be sort of like the Alm fangirl, or maybe she's just a really good friend of him. It's difficult to say at this point, but she could definitely be a potential love interest to him. Now, of course, Celica is his canonical pairing, but I imagine you will be able to pair him up with a lot of different chicks. So, yeah, it's nice to get a female villager, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she pans out. So, it appears that Celica's route gets a male character, and Alm's route gets a female character. So, they seem to be trying to even out the genders a little bit. So, yeah, two new characters that's unique to the game. I think we all expected there to be some new characters, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they play out. Very, very interested indeed. Alright, so that's all I got for you guys regarding updates on Shadows of Valentia. I am pretty surprised by some of the design choices they are making regarding this game. I mean, I know I said this about Fates, but it definitely seems like they are trying to pander more to a veteran audience with this game, and it is a big gamble on Nintendo's part. I mean, they're really staying true to some of the guiding principles, only adding a few new mechanics on top of this game. We haven't heard anything about an avatar. We haven't heard anything about children units, so it looks pretty promising, to be quite honest. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that I'm not expecting too much. They could, in the last minute, just be announcing a bunch of casual features. I mean, they've already included a casual mode, and that's fine to me. I think that's completely fine to have a casual mode for those who are not super interested in being good at the game, I guess. But I am very, very surprised with the direction Nintendo is going, and it's a big gamble considering the massive casual fan base you got out there with Fire Emblem. So I really hope that Shadows of Valentia will sell well, because if it is pandering to the veterans and it ends up selling well, then I am confident that we will be getting more Echoes releases, maybe a Fire Emblem 4 remake, Fire Emblem 5 remake, or maybe even a Fire Emblem 6 remake. That would be so incredibly cool, and I think it all hinges on whether or not this game sells well. So definitely make sure you pick it up if you're a fan of the series. So the game is coming out very soon, May 19th. It's just over a month, and if there's any more videos or news articles getting released, I will be making a video briefing you guys on the updates. I'll be keeping you guys very informed in the next month to come if more information is released. And if not, you can look forward to a Let's Play coming out on the day that the game is released. I'll make sure to record the first episode as soon as I download the game and have the episode out on YouTube, preferably like within hours of its release. That is the idea at any rate, so you guys get to see this game immediately. So yeah, please consider leaving a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video. I certainly do appreciate it a lot. Share it with your friends, click the little bell to be notified when new videos are released. Subscribe for more Fire Emblem content. My name is Manx, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!